Okay, let's call the meeting order at 5:31 p.m. Welcome everybody. Bear with me, my first time running a meeting. I'm sure it will go smoothly. Second thing on the agenda, roll call.
Ms. Martinez?
Here.
Dr. Baines? Mr. Freitas? Ms. Gatil?
I'm here.
Mr. Brazil?
Here.
Ms. Vielma?
Here.
Mr. Helm?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Dean? Mr. Razvani? Mr. O'Brien? Ms. Austin Tibbetts? Mr. Liba?
I'm here.
Mr. Cunha? Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next agenda item, approving the minutes for October's meeting. I gave it a quick look over. Does anybody need a minute to look it over, or are we ready to approve? Everybody good?
Approved.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second, SB.
Thank you. And this, I can just say, any opposition? No? Okay.
Tom, I would like to abstain since I wasn't present.
That's a good point. I was also not present, but I looked over the minutes. I think that's okay to just not not abstain. All right, so they are approved. The next item on the agenda is for public comment. This time is made available for comments from the public. Just have somebody join. On matters that are not on the agenda, it is requested that no comments be made during this period on items on the agenda. The public may make comments on each EJAG agenda item during the time allowed for public comments. Attention is called to the fact that the EJAG is prohibited by law from taking any action on discussion of matters that are not on the agenda. Are there any public comments?
Through the chair, we have one member of the public present, so I'll wait just a minute. Meanwhile, I'll announce that Ms. Dean has joined the meeting, and it looks like we do not have public comment on this item.
Okay, we will move on to item number 5, chair comments. Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a good evening. Hope you're all safe and healthy. Those are my comments for the night. Item number 6, APCO deputy comments.
Good evening. It's Morgan Lambert, Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer. Just have a few updates for the group tonight. First off, I just wanted to bring to your attention just a little bit of an update on our tune-in, tune-up vehicle repair program, which is obviously a program that EJAC has long had an interest in and has long advocated for, continuing to fund the program. I believe at this January meeting, just last month or earlier this month, the board approved adding, hold on, sorry. Give us 1 second, sorry. Okay, here we go. The board approved an additional $4 million in funding for the continued implementation of that program through the remainder of this current fiscal year. Back in June when the board adopted the budget, the program was funded with $7 million. But as we've been moving through the year and with the resumption of some of the in-person weekend events, we were projecting a potential shortfall in program funding. And so the board did approve additional funding to help us get through that year. Just as a little bit of a refresher, that funding is used to provide residents with assistance for smog-related vehicle repairs. The vehicles are screened for likelihood of a failed smog test, and then the owners of vehicles that are high emitting and likely would have failed the smog test are provided vouchers for emission-related repairs. As I said, we did have to, I think it was March of 2020, because of COVID-related concerns. We had put the weekend events on hold for a little bit over a year, and we kind of changed the model of the program to be kind of a direct program where people could sign up directly without having to go through the weekend events. That was very successful over that time period, but we still think there's a lot of value in having the weekend events. It reaches some different audiences that the online or direct model doesn't necessarily get to, as well as it gives us opportunities to do other outreach within those communities or for the people taking advantage of those programs. So we did, with our partners, resume those events in June of this last year. Although the focus was a little bit different than the focus had been previously, the focus kind of as we started back up was on small rural communities throughout the valley, because we kind of adapted those events to include, COVID health and safety precautions. So we were trying to keep it more smaller and a little bit more manageable, not the huge mega events that we had in the past because of some of the COVID concerns. Here's just a quick list of the communities that we did hit over this last or up through the end of last year. So as you can see, some of these places were places that we hadn't taken the program to in the past, and we did have good participation in some of these smaller communities throughout the valley. And then as we kind of got towards the later parts of the year, we started then kind of expanding a little bit more towards the normal model, where we got back into some bigger locations, some bigger cities and fairgrounds to increase access to the program. And then this is just a schedule of the remaining events, so you guys would have that in case people that may want to take advantage of it. Obviously, when we put the slide together, the Madera event hadn't happened, but now it has happened. But excited to continue along with this important program. And then secondly, tonight, I just wanted to talk about another some additional funding award that we just recently received. Our board just recently accepted a little bit over $20 million from the federal targeted airshed grant program, which is dispersed by EPA. And we had 3 different projects that were proposed, and all of them were selected for funding. One was to replace diesel ag tractors. One was to replace heavy-duty diesel trucks. And then the last one was to replace wood-burning open hearth fireplaces and non-certified wood-burning devices. All of them, again, were selected under the competitive program. The funding that we have, the public funding, will have to be matched with about the same amount or a little bit more, over $30 million in partner funding, as people take advantage of the program. This funding amount, this $20.7 million, represented about 35% of the total funds available nationwide. So from our perspective, that's very successful. We can bring that high of a percentage to the valley to help with the emission reduction measures. And in fact, the ag tractor proposal that we had was actually the highest ranked proposal of any of the applications that EPA had received this year. Just a little bit more details on the specific proposals on the ag equipment tractor program. This will replace older tier or tier 0 tractors with the newest, latest, cleanest tier 4 tractors. The grant amount for this project is $8 million. We're planning on utilizing our existing agricultural tractor replacement program guidelines. And we expect that this money will replace approximately a little over 200 tractors. And you can see down below, pretty significant amount of emission reductions are expected over the lifetime of those projects. For the fireplace program, as I said, this will be used to replace open hearth fireplaces and older wood-burning devices with newer, cleaner devices, which includes electric heat pumps, as well as natural gas devices, and then cleaner burning certified devices in certain areas throughout the valley, all consistent with under our current burn cleaner program. Again, this is we got an $8 million award for this. We expect that this will be enough to replace approximately 5,700 devices, and expect pretty significant emission reductions in PM from this program. And then lastly, on the heavy duty truck side, this funding will be available to replace 2016 and older heavy duty diesel trucks with 0 and near 0 duty or heavy duty trucks. It's about $5 million in funding. We're utilizing our existing truck replacement program, and we think it'll be enough to replace approximately 56 trucks. And again, fairly significant reductions, especially on the NOx side. So again, very, very excited to get this additional funding and be able to bring it here to the Valley and partner with various stakeholders and residents to further reduce emissions here in the Valley. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the group may have.
Thank you very much. It looks like Derek has his hand up. And I turned off my video because it said my internet was unstable. So if it gets better, I'll turn it back on. Derek?
Yes, thank you. Just one quick question. On the $8 million for tractors, and it's, it's not a huge amount, 200 tractors, when ag is the #1 industry in the Valley, isn't very many tractors. I wish it was more, but it is what it is. Is there a percentage that has been allocated to what I would call the small family farm, the 40 to 200 acres, say? The average orange grower, for example, in the old days before Wonderful, the whole Paramount and all the big boys, was the average family farm was 40 acres. And it was that way for decades and decades and decades. So, we can't buy tractors for a guy with 10 acres, but you could realistically say, a smaller grower, a family farmer would be, say, 40 to 200 acres. Have you got a certain percentage of that $8 million or those 200 tractors allocated for, in effect, that's kind of like our disadvantaged farmers, if you will. And if you don't, could we make that recommendation and ask that you would do that in some way, shape, or form?
I'll let Todd answer that question.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. Hey, Derek, that's a great question. And it's something that we've been sort of keenly interested in over the last several years, really how to reach those small farmers. The economics of the traditional grant programs like the Carl Moyer program and the Farmer program and this federal funding, which actually runs through our existing program, so it's subject to those same guidelines. They really sort of sometimes work against some of the smaller farmers in the respect that they generally don't use the tractors enough to make those projects cost effective. So, the higher the longer you use your tractor, the more reductions you get by replacing it. And so those that are not typically used a lot don't qualify for as much money. And then it makes it harder for them to actually make those purchases. So we're actually looking at ways to, we actually had a meeting with an organization yesterday, and they're an organization that represents small family farmers, a lot of the Hmong and Southeast Asian farmers throughout the Valley. And we're coming up with ways to sort of reach them better. Some of the ideas that we're thinking about are providing incentives, which is not eligible right now, but providing incentives for used tractors. So, somebody that may not be able to buy a brand, it's sort of like the car trade-up program where you may not be able to buy a brand new car, but if we can get you into something that's significantly cleaner, that's a lot cheaper, we're looking at ways to do that. So that's one of the things that we're keenly interested in. Some of our programs, like our Alternatives to Agricultural Burning program, we do have a set aside of 30% for some of the smaller farms under 500 acres in size. But the tractor replacement program doesn't have that restriction or that set aside, that carve out. It's something that we're always interested in, and having a set aside, we'll have enough funding for everybody that comes in. So whether they're a small farm or a large farm, everybody that comes in will get funded.
So my last comment to your comment might be to run it like we do with the car buyback program. And if a farmer comes in with his 400 or 500 acres, let's not give him an extra tractor. Let's have him turn in one that hopefully is a little bit newer that could then be passed on down to somebody that's smaller that needs one, so that we're not just building the multi-million-air farmers inventory of more equipment. I'm
For
sure
sure,
we can
yeah.
work something like that out, like they do the cars, the trucks.
Yeah, and yeah, we have operated pilot programs like that. They're called the trade up programs, where somebody a larger farm turns in a tier 3, and then that tier 3 gets traded down to somebody who's got a tier 0, and then we crush the tier 0. And so those are concepts that we're familiar with and that we've worked through in the past. And so those are all options that we're kind of working through, because we understand that there is a segment of the farming population. Well, you said it yourself, small farms are disappearing in large part. They're being subsumed by these larger farms, but there are still quite a few small farms out there, and we want to do everything that we can to make sure that they have access to these incentive funds as well. So we've got lots of strategies and things that we're working on in that respect. So we're definitely kind of rowing in the same direction. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent comment and question. And yeah, I was on that meeting the other day, and there's definitely a need for defining small farmers, well, for alternatives to burning and these programs. I mean, to me, growing up, I grew up next to dairies and farms that were like 10 to 50 acres, and it seems like there should be special classifications for that. But Naomi, you also have your hand up.
Yeah, well, excellent point, Derek. I was going to suggest the same, not only for the trucks, but also for the tractors, but for the diesel trucks. I think that we need to make sure that, again, we're in the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee, so we need to advocate that this funding goes not to the companies or the businesses that have the manpower to know about this funding and put in their application first, but there actually are more of need of this assistance. So, we know, because we were hearing that when we were doing that series of Calmoyer workshops with you guys several years ago, where the owners that have, 1 or maybe up to 4 trucks didn't even know that there was a program that they could apply for. So they has to be more targeted outreach to the smaller operators as well. And then on that same note of making things more easily accessible to the disadvantaged communities, I was going to ask if you know how Valley Can decides where they take their tune-up events. Because I'm glad to see that there's right now a combination of small to large communities up and down the valley. And I think that's a good pattern to follow. But how do they determine where do they go next? So just to make sure that we're covering the 8 counties and that we're covering small and large communities.
That's exactly what we do. We want to make sure that we're in each county at least once a year, and then we are rotating now between small and large cities. And there's advantages to both. Obviously, a large city is going to have more capacity, and you're going to provide more vouchers for vehicles. But there's a huge need in some of these smaller cities, and we've figured out how to scale these events so you're not taking everything you would take in a large city out to a small city and wasting time and money. We figured out how to scale these events to these smaller cities, and we've got a great model, and I think it's been super successful this past year. As we started to reintroduce the weekend events, we started in those smaller cities to run some pilots on how this would work. And I think we've really refined that model. So you'll see moving forward, it's going to be a great combination of, North, Central, and South region, every county, and then that combination, that balance of small and large cities.
Excellent. Thank you, Todd. SB has your hand up.
Yeah. So in terms of the tune in and tune up event, the last one that was here in Stockton, we attempted to do a little bit of like education on the whole like lawnmower thing. And so kind of going to like what Naomi was saying, like a lot of people don't know about these programs. And so, so we went out and just like purchased a, because we on the AB 617, we're still behind on that part. So we don't have those monies allocated right for the Stockton region. And so we just went ahead and like, demonstrated that, and then people were very much of interest. And so, so I think it's something, like moving forward that we need to continue to do. right? So that they can actually see, okay, this is what you get, a brand new electric lawnmower, and then they get all excited about it and what the process is and everything. So we're going to continue to work with Valley Can to do that. And especially like, like throughout the whole region. But the thing is that we wanted to test it out. And so I wanted to let you all know that's one of the things that we did. And then that's on a smaller scale. The other question that I had, Todd, was like, in reaching out to those, the small farms and those EJ farmers specifically, like we're talking about, since we have our event, with the Ag and Tech Summit, there were farmers there, that didn't know about the programs and what have you. And it was a great presentation by staff as far as that. But in a follow-up to that, would it be something that would be helpful that we could have, again, because in the Manteca Center, it is, part of the lab through San Joaquin Delta College. So it's for like the whole county. And they're, very amicable in terms of, having some kind of event of that nature so that we can like the same kind of thing, like showcase, with the, and I don't know if there's something like this, like there is for the vehicles, where they bring in, if it's Valley Can or someone else to bring in, this is what, the replacements look like, the, in terms of the tractors and the different trucks and what have you, to like do kind of like that demo, because there's space that allows for it there. And if we could do that, we can help put that event together with Delta College.
No, I think that sounds wonderful. We're down for any outreach, especially, reaching those hard to reach segments. We're good at reaching, the big farmers, and, those are, those are well defined. And where we're really focusing right now is drilling down and making sure that we're trying to, to include, some of the smaller disadvantaged areas, that don't have access to some of the large trade industries and trade groups, and they're not part of, those larger organizations. So we'd absolutely be interested to talk to you about setting something up. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. I was having the same thought about other things that could be at this event. I was thinking of even like testing and booster shots and stuff. I don't know if that's I know that would be a big thing to do, but just throwing that out there.
It's actually occurring.
They did it in Madrid. I remember the ads, the radio ads saying, come on, you can get your car and get your vaccine and get everything done.
That's right.
We did that at the one in Stockton. Yeah, we helped Valley Can with that. So definitely, Tom, we can do that.
Yeah.
We added that piece.
Awesome. Ahead of the game. Mr. Brazil also has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Todd, quick question for you on the commercial diesel truck replacement. You said there was 5 million, so that's about 89,000 divided by 56, about $89,000. Is that what the program is actually given to the recipient?
So that's kind of an average. So we can pay up to $100,000 for what we call near zero emission, so a low NOx natural gas truck, and we can actually pay up to $200,000 for a full electric truck. And then there's some variation in there based on the class of the truck, whether it's a class 8, class 7, class 6. There's kind of a scale of funding. That 89,000, I believe, in our application for EPA was an average of what we thought we could do with that funding. And that was just an estimate at the time of, just a mix of truck classes and technology.
What class does the diesel engine, the new 2021 diesel engine fall under?
I'm not sure I understand which.
Well, in other words, you're saying there's different classifications for.
Oh, yeah.
Natural, so what class is the diesel engine under?
So the natural gas engines at this point I think they're available in class 6, 7, and 8. So the larger engines. The electric trucks are available in some of the smaller some of the smaller like local delivery trucks and box vans and things like that. I think there may be a smaller natural gas engine that'll go down that far as well. But at this point, we're not funding any new diesel. So everything in the program has to be either that low NOx natural gas or electric.
Okay, got it. That was my question. So I
Oh.
had a couple people call me that were looking to replace diesel with diesel, but obviously new. And they said there was no funding available. And then, but tonight you had mentioned that there was 5 million. So I was confused about, but I didn't realize the diesel had been taken out of it.
Yeah, the issue with diesel is that we're bumping up against the regulatory deadline for the truck and bus regulation, the statewide truck and bus regulation. And once we hit that, we can no longer provide incentives for that because diesel is now the standard under the regulation. And so the incentive programs have to be, they have to go beyond what the regulation would require, or they have to be done earlier than the regulation would require. And so now that the regulatory deadlines are here, they would have to go beyond what's required.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You
Appreciate
got
it.
it. Sure.
All right, I don't see any more hands up. I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda item. Really quickly, obviously everybody is free to raise their hand and speak their minds. It is almost 6 and we have a lot of agenda items. That's just a friendly reminder. Update on attainment plans and rules.
All right, and thank you, Chair and members of the group. This is John Klassen, Director of Air Quality Science and Planning, and I'll give you a brief update on recent actions regarding rules and plans here at the Air District. So, regarding PM 2.5 planning, I wanted to note that last month, the EPA proposed approval of our Sirius plan for the 2012 PM 2.5 standard, and this is for the annual average of 12 micrograms per meter cube. So that proposed approval is out there. If it gets finalized, then that'll give us an attainment deadline of 2025 to meet that annual standard of 12 micrograms. We are continuing to work on our latest ozone plan for the 2015 8-hour ozone standard that's set at 70 parts per billion. We're continuing to work through the elements of that plan. We had our latest workshop last fall. We're planning to do another one here in about a month or so to give some updates on the elements we're working on and to get feedback there. And that's planned to come to our board by this summer for their consideration. Looking at the different rules we've been working on, just wanted to note that last month at our December board meeting, our board approved 3 different rules: amendments to Rule 4354, glass melting furnaces, and 4352, solid fuel-fired boilers, steam generators, and process heaters. These were both rules that were commitments from our 2018 PM 2.5 plan, where we looked at the latest control technologies and made amendments to those rules to get further emissions reductions from those sources. And our board also approved updates to Rule 4905 for natural gas-fired furnaces for residential and commercial uses. We're continuing to work on a few other rules that are still in progress, a series of rules related to leak detection and repair requirements. We're going through that process now. We also kicked off a public process last month for Rule 4550, conservation management practices, to look at that rule to see what else could be done. That's also a commitment from our 2018 PM 2.5 plan. And finally, we are kicking off a process to look at potential amendments to our Petroleum Refinery fence line air monitoring rule. We are doing a scoping meeting next Tuesday to kick that off and to get some initial feedback as we continue through that rulemaking process later this year. That's it for my update. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Ned got his hand up.
Yeah, John, if you can hear me, just we get these lovely reports, and it's always nice to know what the attainment plans are, but I think it would help if we had a chart that actually showed where we were. So I think we're all very amazed and happy to hear that San Joaquin County, or Stockton, has a PM 2.5 annual achievement of 11 micrograms. So we've already satisfied that standard, unless it's changed. But gee, wouldn't it be good to have a chart that shows us what the attainment goals are and where we are, perhaps county by county? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ned. Yeah, I think I've seen a chart like that. I'm pretty sure it exists. I'm not sure how that works by county as a regional district, but I don't see any other hands up for this part. We still have other rules, but as somebody from Stanislaus County, where we have both a glass factory and a trash incinerator, which is one of those boilers, I appreciate these new rules. We want to move on to the next one if there's no comments, no more comments on those.
Through the chair, I see no additional comments on this item.
All right, do we have Brian or?
This is Morgan. I can maybe kick this next item off, which is the election of officers. I think the last maybe 2 meetings, I believe, not last meeting, but before that, we've kind of kicked off the need to elect, at the time it was a new chair, Mr. Freitas's term was expiring. And at this point, now that we're into 2022, Mr. Helms' term for vice chair is also expiring. So what we're looking for now is for potential a new chair and a new vice chair. Now, just a reminder, the chair's terms, just by the way that the bylaws have been written, the chair is elected for a 2-year term. The vice chair is elected for a 1-year term throughout the year. At the last meeting that we had this item on the agenda, there was some discussion around the desire that potentially those that are interested in or either nominated or would like to be nominated maybe could share a little bit about themselves and about their why they think they would make a good chair. So I don't know if that's still the desire of the group today or not. So I'll leave that up to the purview of the group. But beyond that, what we would need today, hopefully, is a motion or nomination for chair and or vice chair. And if we have multiple nominations, then we can handle those kind of in order. They could be handled either way too. We could handle the chair first and then the vice chair, or there could be recommendations for both offices concurrently. Just kind of depends on the pleasure of your group. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the group.
Well, thank you. I see Dennis has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to nominate Ms. Martinez for the chair position for the 2-year term.
I would second that. And I see Ms. Dean also has her hand up.
Thank you. I would like to nominate Derek Williams for chair.
Do the nominations need a second?
Yeah, they would need a second, yes.
I'll second Derek. Might as well hear a campaign speech from both of the candidates, don't you think?
And a clarifying question, can a vice chair serve 2 terms in a row? Or does it need to be somebody else?
No, they could serve 2 years in a row, yes.
So do we
At the
vote
point-
first, or we hear nominations for vice chair?
I think we would need to handle the motions on the floor first if there's no more motion or no more nominations, and after that, we could switch over to the vice chair.
Okay.
So I don't know if the group is ready to take action. If so, we can call for the roll. We would start with and just a reminder to elect the chair of EJAG, you have to have 7 affirmative votes for the motion and the candidate.
Well, again, a point of order, if I may.
Yep.
Usually there's an opportunity for discussion, and I would propose that we give the 2 candidates a minute or 2 to tell us what they're going to do and why they're so good.
Yeah, I was gonna just check real quick if there's any other nominations before we moved on to that. Hearing none. Okay, yeah, I say we go with that suggestion.
Ladies first.
I was gonna say alphabetical order by last name. I mean, I don't know.
Well, unless you want to do it by first name. No, Derek, you had your hand raised. Do you want to say something? Go
No,
ahead.
I was just going, if you can hear me, I was just going to say what Neil said, that I think that the group probably should hear 30 seconds or a minute or two from each of us, what we're doing, just so they can, because not all of them even know who we are and know that much about us.
Sure. Well, with that, hello everyone. I am Naomi Martinez. I am the Executive Director for the Central California Environmental Justice Network, or CCJN, an EA organization that was founded 21 years ago. We work in 5 or the 8 counties in the San Joaquin Valley, from Kern all the way to Madera. And I've been the ED for this organization for almost 7 years. But I have been living in the Valley, especially in Fresno County, for 21 years. As you can see by my accent, I'm immigrant. I think that I would be pleased to serve this position because I see and work with environmental justice communities in these 5 counties every single day. So it's not something I do once every 2 months. I see what are the needs. I see the problems that our air pollution causes in communities, in public health. That's my background. I have masters in sociology and a master's in public health. And before working with the CCJN, I was a health project coordinator with the Madera County Department of Public Health, and have been working with immigrants and in CDOs all these 21 years that I have lived in California. And, the organization that I have the privilege to lead has done a lot of community air monitoring and just education to community members on how they could, be protected from air pollution. And that we really improving air pollution in the Central Valley is at the core of what we do, and that's why I'm so passionate about this. And personally, I have a son that has asthma. So since he was 2 years old, so that is, air pollution is at the heart. It has affected my family. It's affected me because I'm a runner, and when the air pollution is bad, I cannot go out and run. So personally, professionally, I'm very vested in seeing our valley having a cleaner air. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Williams?
Well, thank you very much. So for those that have been around a little while, you probably know that I have been active with Environmental Justice Advisory Group almost since the beginning. I think I started coming at the 2nd meeting or the 3rd meeting many years ago. And I actually attended for a year as a member of the public, serving on virtually every subcommittee there was during that time. And then about the same time, I became Tulare County Industry Ag appointee to the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Air District, a position which I've held ever since then. So I'm in my 11th year doing that or so. I also serve as an alternate on TCAG, Tulare County Association of Governments. I'm a primary member of the Tulare County Agricultural Advisory Committee to the Board of Supervisors. I serve on 2 legislative committees for the Association of Realtors. I'm a CAR, first point of contact for one of our state assemblymen. I've been with EJAG, like I said, almost since the beginning, basically since the beginning. I've had the privilege of chairing a couple of times, and I vice chaired for 2 or 3 years. And I actually was the one that came down and started the grant subcommittee a number of years ago when it was necessary. I was at my home up in Plumas County and drove the 4 hours to Modesto so we could get that put through, and then drove 4 hours home and got back up there at about 1:30 in the morning. But we got the grants committee put together. I've chaired it ever since it was put together. So I've got a lot of experience with that. But I also have always tried to be involved when there are members that have needs for a chairman to come to an event and speak, make presentations, whether it was on the DMV money or other programs. I've gone to different places and made those presentations on behalf of the district. On some of them, Sayed and Jamie actually came down and one time asked me after the presentation, "Are you planning on running for office?" And I said, "No, never. I just want to be a volunteer servant. I don't make any money off of this. I don't represent any organizations that make any money from what we're doing in the district. This is for me strictly a volunteer service, and that's all I want it to be." I'm actually at my age, probably honestly looking at just doing this if I'm elected, one term, 2 years. And then and then at that time, it'll be probably time for me to pass the seat on to somebody else. But I've always tried to, when I'm in management and when I was chairing it before, we were going through some turbulent times between the CAC and the Environmental Justice Group. And I made it my goal during that time, and I was successful doing it, to basically bring peace to the two groups and make the working relationship stronger. And things have gone very well ever since then. So I have a lot of expertise doing this, and I've been involved in the community a lot, and I'm on a lot of different boards and commissions helping out, but it's never kept me from, I've never had to miss a meeting. I think I've missed in 10 years, one CAC meeting. And maybe in all these years, I've missed one EJAG meeting. If you look at my record, I have a very, very good attendance record. So that's who I am and what I do. And I would be also very proud to serve this group one more time.
Thank you very much to both of you. I think we're ready to vote unless there's any other comments. I don't see any hands.
Through the chair, we need to ask for public comment.
Okay, we will take public comment on this matter.
It looks like we have one member of the public present, but I do not see an indication of public comment.
Okay,
All right.
well, I say we move. Oh, somebody gonna say something?
I was just going to say, so the first item to take, our motion to consider will be the motion for Mr. Williams for chair first, and then after that, depending on the status of that, we would go to Ms. Martinez.
Okay, so we're voting yes or no on each candidate.
No, so so you take the motions. So basically, the second motion was a substitute motion for the first motion. So that motion will be considered first. That motion was for Mr. Williams for chair. If that motion does not pass, then we would take up the original motion, which was for Ms. Martinez.
Okay, so we can't just say which one we're voting for.
No, we're bound by the rules of order.
Understandable. So just to clarify, because I was a little confused, so maybe somebody else is, but so we're gonna vote yes or no whether or not we're supporting Mr. Williams for the chair position first.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, can we
ready?
call for a vote?
Okay, Ms. Martinez,
No.
Ms. Gatil,
No.
Mr. Brazil,
No.
Ms. Vielma,
Jane?
abstain. Mr. Helm,
No.
Mr. Williams,
I guess I better say yes.
Ms. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
No.
Mr. Liba.
Yes.
Motion does not pass.
So now we move to the original motion on the floor, which is for Ms. Martinez for chair.
Okay. Ms. Martinez,
Yes.
Ms. Gatil,
Yes.
Mr. Brazil,
Yes.
Ms. Vielma,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Liba.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Well, congratulations, Ms. Martinez. You'll be the new chair of EJAG for the next few years. It'll be a pleasure to work with you as we set agendas and move forward with the group. So now we can shift attention to the vice chair. Similar process. We'll need to have whatever motions to nominate a potential vice chair for the next 1 year.
Well, thank you all for your,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, Chair. Just want to say thank you and also want to nominate Tom Helm for the vice chair position.
Thank you. I accept.
And just to keep this interesting, I would like to nominate Laura Gattil if she's interested in running.
Thank you for the nomination, but I am not at this point. Thank you.
Do we have a second on the first motion?
I will second Tom.
Derek, you still have your hand up? Wasn't sure if that was from before. Are there any other nominations? Okay, well, that one was easier.
And through the chair, I'll just call for public comment really quickly. Do we have any public comment on the motion? Still have one member of the public, seeing none. We'll move to the roll call vote. Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Ms. Gattil?
Yes.
Mr. Brazil?
Yes.
Ms. Vielma?
Yes.
Mr. Helm?
Yes, why not?
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Liba?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I had one question and one comment. The question being, does this effective immediately or beginning of next meeting? I forget.
Generally, the chair will take over the meeting at this point.
Oh, all right. Well, then that just leaves me with one comment, and that is he's not here, but a thank you to Keith, Mr. Freitas, for serving as the chair, and also a thank you to Derek, because he's right. He's been involved in the EJAG for a very long time. He was the one who interviewed me when I was selected to be on the EJAG, and has definitely put in a lot of hours for this cause. So I am appreciative of that, and for everybody else for their volunteering for this as well. So thank you, and I guess I'm done here.
No, you're the vice chair still, but
well, but you get to run the meeting.
well, thank you again. And Derek, I would look after you for coaching and advice, since you have much more experience with these meetings than I do. So I hope that you accept that if I have any questions, I could email you to get your advice.
Absolutely. Anything you ever need, just give me a text or a call or an email. And anything I can do for you with the grants committee, I'm happy to do.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you again all for giving me this opportunity. I hope that I can work with all of you. And in the spirit of continuing with our meeting, because we are at 6:20, we're going to move us to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the fiscal year 20. Sorry, no, that's not it. The review and approval of goals and objectives for the calendar year 2022. So is there going to be
Through the chair, I'm sorry, through the chair, you're actually right. The next item is approve fiscal year 22-23 grants committee recommendations. Item number 9.
Since I was
That's okay.
I was in the grant committee, I thought we have done all that, but thank you. So we are going to hear the recommendation that the grants committee made. We met before this meeting, and so would any of the staff members will be presenting, or do we do our own presentation about the recommendation?
We can do it either way. Generally, one of the members of the grants committee will kind of go over the recommendations from the committee, but obviously staff's here to answer any questions that people may have.
Well, with that, may I ask Derek if you can give a summary, because you have made a lot of notes of what the recommendation is?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll be happy to do that. If you can pull up from your packet, the 2021 Grants Committee recommendation that was approved, which is now the 21-22 recommendation. We actually did not make any changes to the formal recommendation that was approved by this group last year and pretty much most of the years before. So unless anybody, everyone should pretty much be familiar with this. If you have any questions, this is the time to ask them. Todd will be happy to go over. There's a lot of items that he discussed that are actually part and parcel of this document. So everything is covered that the district does with the funds that we have in our purview. There are other things, obviously, like 617 that's not part of our purview, but everything within our purview is covered in here. If any members have questions, this is the time to ask Todd. If not, then I know the chair would entertain a motion to for the group to approve our subcommittee's recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Derek. Any questions before we hear a motion? I see no one raising their hands. So may I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022-2023 Grants Committee recommendations?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Martinez,
Yes.
Ms. Gatil,
Yes.
Mr. Brazil,
Aye.
Ms. Vielma,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Liba,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. So now we are really moving to the next agenda item, which is the review and approval of our goals and objectives for this calendar year 2022. Will there be a presentation from the staff of what is the revised or the most recent document?
Yeah, I can just provide a couple of quick, just a reminder that each year, consistent with the bylaws of EJAG, the committee will come forward with a recommendation of the goals and objectives and an action plan that then gets forwarded to the executive director of the Air District for final approval. And that kind of guides the potential topics and some of the deliverables that may happen over the course of the year. Now, last year, I will say we had quite extensive discussion on this item. If you remember, I think it spanned over 4 meetings. And so we made some pretty significant, I think, and important changes to the document last year. But we are, to keep on schedule with what's consistent with the bylaws, we start that discussion again in January. And to see, you were provided as part of your packet the final document that was approved last year after all the discussion and changes that were made, to see if there's any need or desire to propose any future changes. Now, you don't have to take action on this today. I mean, we prefer it hopefully to get done sooner in the year, but potentially if there's need for discussion on topics and we need to bring it back next meeting, we can do that as well. But this is the first chance to discuss the need for any potential changes or enhancements and to potentially take action on the item to forward that to the executive director.
Thank you.
And I should note that one last thing to note. After going over it and based on the extensive review that we did last year, the district doesn't have any recommended changes this year.
Thank you. Mr. Leiva, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, just a comment, because of course I'm a little bit new to the EJAG. I'm being educated too. Yeah, it's an interesting document you have here. Let's read this first sentence. The San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, a public health agency protecting the health of all San Joaquin Valley residents. Well, MPH will join me in saying, doesn't it seem like maybe we should have something in here like our first goal is to measure the health effects, maybe over time, of pollution, the different measures that we undertake in our community, and to think about the health cost benefits that are involved. This has always been a big issue with me in asthma, for example. I just wonder if maybe we should focus, for example, measures to abate health risks of asthma, and we actually do that in a somewhat systemic way. I don't see anything about health in this document. It seems to me that should be the first item. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Great comment, and I 100% agree with you. That's my background and that's my passion, public health. So definitely, I second that comment that we might need to take more time to add perhaps another objective or goal, a complete standalone one that explicitly explains how the air district is fulfilling this part of their mission. Or if we want to combine it into one of the existing goals and objectives. So any thoughts or reactions to that particular recommendation or suggestion, or any other comments regarding the objectives and action plan? Derek.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place or not, so I'll let staff jump in if it's not. I don't know if there's some place in here where, and I don't think it really maybe would go with the grants, but if there's some place in here where we're involved on the goals and objectives, that we could somehow work with the district to be able to address the issues of potential supply shortages or the inability to get what the money's supposed to pay for, so that we could be a part of, that the district would bring us in and we could be a part of making recommendations of where else the funds could be used so we don't lose them. Maybe working to get provisions where funding for one item that can't be done at all, there's a provision, a lock-in provision that allows those funds to go to something else, maybe in the cities, maybe to trucks, whatever. I don't know if there's somewhere in here we could fit something like that, but we're going into sort of uncertain times between supply side shortages, trucks not being able to cross borders with goods, computer chips not making it from China, tractors aren't being able to actually even be fixed to run because all the parts aren't there. We could start seeing some serious things with the inflation. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I foresee once interest rates start to go up, that the real estate, which is one of the only things propping up the economy, if it goes, the economy is going to, we're on the verge of probably something worse than 1929. And I think that some way, somehow, we ought to be ready for that. And I don't know how we can be ready for that, but I mean, I would even suggest that maybe we add a subcommittee for, emergency situations to have an input and make that part of our goals and objectives, something. But we are in really strange times right now, that unlike anything we've ever seen, with all the money that's been printed up and with what's going on on a global basis. We could be in a war here real soon, and we could be like 1944 or 42. So I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But I don't see any preparation being taking place where we're preparing for any eventualities that could affect everything that we're doing through the district. Well, how could we, in our goals and objectives, help the district with ideas to be prepared for what may come? And let's not lose what funding there is and get it someplace where it can do some good. So anyway, that's just something, maybe we don't do it tonight, but maybe at some point it's something that we should be talking about. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I was thinking that maybe that could be an action item that can be added to goal objective 5, which that relates to, funding that specifies cap and trade. So it doesn't have to be only that. But I'm hearing that there's appetite for spending more time editing or adding more things to these goals and objectives. So maybe what I would like to ask, if you prefer to table the approval instead of doing it tonight, take more time to go over it. I would have a question for Morgan. What would be the process for us to work in between our next meeting and now to make those changes to this work plan?
Well, I think there's a couple of different ways that it could happen. Obviously, you know, you've got time tonight to discuss some of these issues. And then if someone wants to take up, you know, potentially, you know, drafting some language that then could be presented at the next meeting on particular interest points that individual members may have, and that could be looked at and considered. And then we could see how that fits in the context of the kind of the charge of the group and how it fits in within the environmental justice bylaws and strategy. You know, aside from that, you know, there's not really a way to collaborate as a group because this is a Brown Act body, you know, short of doing a subcommittee or something of that nature.
Exactly.
That just timing wise, though, that can be difficult and challenging as well to try to get meetings. I mean, because it's not just your all time, it's also the district's time with all the other meetings that we have, you know, the public meetings we schedule on other weeks, you know, throughout the year. So, you know, the first step may be, and that's generally how it's worked, is that, you know, we may have some high level discussions on some interest areas that people may have at this first meeting. And then, you know, individual members, may take, a stab at putting together some draft language that then we bring back potentially at the February meeting, and we can share that language and kind of see where we go from there.
Derek, go ahead.
Through the chair, I would love to see our chairman establish a subcommittee and make sure we have at least one city person, one somebody from industry ag, and somebody from environmental. You know, at least one, if not more. And you chair the committee yourself, Naaman, and have a meeting to work on drafting up some language between now and the next meeting. I don't see any reason why we couldn't wait to I mean, in the past, we've gone months without finalizing this document. So I don't think one more meeting would hurt. And I certainly think we could have one meeting of, you know, 4 or 5 people that if we could get, and then get representation from the groups on there. And it's not that the representation is, for me, is just to make sure we don't miss any perspective, because people from different areas or different groups may have different ideas and perspectives of what we're trying to accomplish in this preparedness mode that we might miss from the group that we're in. And I just wanted to make sure we don't miss anything from any group's perspective that will accomplish the goal of what you're trying to do with the group and with this document.
Thank you for that recommendation. I do agree that it would make more sense to have more time to flesh out the language rather than trying to do it as part of tonight's meeting. We still have several agenda items that we need to go through. So I personally agree with Derek's recommendation of creating a subcommittee that can devote more time to come up with recommendations to the entire group at our next meeting. And, you know, so far I've heard 2 specific recommendations. One is to add something related to public health and how we will help the Air District fulfill that role. And the second one is Derek's point of what do we need to do to help the Air District mobilize funds or raise more funds as needed if the funds that are allocated to certain strategies are unable to be allocated, or, you know, you're going to be doing a better job of wording that than me, Derek, but that will be in essence the 2 points that so far will be considered by this subcommittee. Do I see any volunteers to be part of this subcommittee? I will be part.
I certainly am happy to serve from the industry ag side if Laura doesn't have time to do it.
I don't. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate that.
Okay. Need somebody from city and environmental?
I'll volunteer.
Thank you, Tom.
Fantastic. Well, we've got Dennis here and Ned's here.
I was gonna
And
say yes, so maybe one more person?
Richard O'Brien is here.
You can put me on there, Madam Chair. I'll get on the committee with you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Brazil. Okay, well,
It'll just be one meeting, so.
yes, so we will coordinate the scheduling of the meetings with the assistance of the Air District staff. So we will table this and then call for a vote. So moving us ahead, we have the update, AB 617. I imagine that would be Jessica.
Madam Chair, may I recommend you continue it, not table it?
Continue it. I will. Thank you.
And Naomi, you are correct. I am going to give this update. So if we can move to the next slide. My name is Jessica Olson. I'm the Director of Community Strategies and Resources, which oversees the district's implementation of AB 617. So it's been, I gave an update at our October meeting. So this is just really an update on progress in all of our 4 communities. So that's in South Central Fresno, Shafter, which are year 1 communities, Stockton, our year 2 community, and Arvin Lamont, which we are working with closely right now on developing the community emission reduction program. In our year 1 and 2 communities, which again is Fresno and Shafter, we have project plans that are required by CARB. Several of them are pending final approval. They've been submitted. That's what you see in the center column. Since I last presented to you, we did receive approval for our residential wood burning program for Fresno and Shafter. We actually recently, because Stockton is a year 2 community and many of the measures mirror those in Fresno and Shafter, have been working closely with CARB in order to expedite the approval of those project plans. So we actually recently took to our board the program for Stockton for Burn Cleaner. And the reason we had to take it to our board is it's actually increased dedicated funding for Stockton AB 617 community residents that's equal to the hotspot county's incentives amount. But Stockton is in San Joaquin County, which otherwise as a district program would not be a hotspot county. So it's certainly increased dedicated funding for that 617 community. We have, it's not noted here, but it's actually still pending approval from CARB because it's slightly different than the other 2 and that it's different from our typical program, but we expect that also here in the next week or so. We also, since last speaking with you, did provide annual reports that were presented to our governing board, which were just updates on SERP implementation in the 3 communities that have adopted SERPs. So next slide, please. A lot of the different communities have subcommittees that we've been working on, and I've certainly provided lots of updates on those kind of moving forward in Fresno and in Shafter in particular. In Stockton, we're kind of taking a different approach. The CSC members are really interested in kind of co-leading and forming their own subcommittees. And so we have meetings, we've set up a community-specific webpage for each of the communities, and in Stockton in particular, we actually have 10 different subcommittees that are listed on the community webpages. And the subcommittees include CSC members, of course, district and CARB staff. There are technical experts, potential partners for implementation that help meet regularly to provide feedback on implementation, develop incentive project plans, like I just mentioned in my previous slide, and also identify outreach opportunities. So we provide regular updates, not only, of course, for Stockton, but as mentioned in Fresno and in Shafter on those ongoing subcommittee meetings. But certainly want to recognize all of the hard work, of course, even just here in the group of Ned and Naimeen and SB, who are in different communities on different, not only regular CSE meetings, but subcommittees that meet often. And it's a lot of nights, a lot of evenings, and I just appreciate all of the effort. And as you can see, if you ever get a chance to go to our community specific webpage, you can see there is so much work being done, really mostly by volunteers. So we appreciate all of that. Next slide, please. So ongoing progress of community design air monitoring network. So not only are we in subcommittees, of course, to implement the community emissions reductions programs, which is one of the main components of the AB 617 program, but we are also tasked with developing community air monitoring programs. And so we have now fully deployed the community designed air monitoring network in Fresno. And you can see that here is just a snapshot of an interactive map we have on our website of the Fresno network. And you can actually click on each one of those. The kind of teal color are the community monitors. The darker color are the regulatory monitors. In Shafter, we have one particular area in La Colonia, which is just south of the actual Shafter kind of proper area. The only reason we have not deployed one there is we have been working very closely with the community on finding a proper site that has the electrical infrastructure in order to deploy there. So in the meantime, we actually have been taking an air monitoring van, so more of a mobile way to monitor and capture pollution until we find a proper site. And the community members have been so helpful. The county's been really helpful in helping us try to figure that out, but otherwise we have everything else deployed there. And there is a similar map. Actually, it's that exact same map. You can just move on down to Shafter on our webpage. Stockton, we are working on contracts for several sites. There are 2 areas we're working very closely. All of the sites have been sort of community recommended, community developed. There are still 2 sites that we haven't found exact partners for, but the community has been really helpful again in helping us identify those. We've actually deployed one van as we work on those contracts. That's at the Little Manila Rising Center, which is actually in the center of the boundary. That is one of our EJ partners we work with very closely up there. And that is actually live data that is on the website as well. Even though it is our air monitoring van, we were able to get that up for the Stockton community. And then finally, and I'll show actually just on my next slide, if you can go to the next slide, we've been working really closely with the Arvin Lamont community on the development of the CAMP, which stands for Community Air Monitoring Program. So this is sort of an indication of the steps we took to get to what we call our, and it's not noted here, but it's really just the proposed community air monitoring design. It is not finalized by any means, but we did several different exercises where we worked out what all of the different community members' sources of concern were. So that's why they're different colors in that left-hand map. Could be various things from dust to mobile sources to industrial sources. Here in the center map, these are all proposed or recommended, rather, community recommended locations for air monitors. And each of those, this is an interactive map where actual comments were captured. And so all of those comments plus the sources kind of equal the far right map, which was our proposed community air monitoring network design. It's very similar in scope and scale to the other communities that we have deployed, but we are committed to working with the community on making sure that everyone agrees on the location. So we still have that work to do with Arvin Lamont, and it's actually what we plan to talk with them about at our February 16th meeting, which is actually an additional meeting in order to make sure that that happens. So we're definitely working hard with them to get this deployed. Next slide, please. And so there's certainly significant work in the coming year. We've definitely made a lot of progress. One of the things I can tell you in terms of progress in working with the CSCs to implement CERT measures is just another great example of community level work. Is in Shafter, actually right after, about a week after I gave you all an update in October, we had a community event in Shafter for our lawn and garden program. I know that SB mentioned lawn and garden as one of the measures that's in the Stockton CERP. It is also in the Fresno and Shafter CERPs. We had a great program where we changed out over 150 lawnmowers at no cost to any resident within the AB 617 Shafter boundary. That event was done locally in Shafter with Shafter partners. We had local groups help us pass out food and get the word out about other district opportunities and events and incentives programs. So it was a great event. We're really grateful, and we plan to bring up to the Fresno community during their next CSC meeting the proposal to do a very similar event in Fresno and most likely eventually in Stockton as well. We also continue to educate and empower residents to get more involved. That's certainly, as we mentioned, not only through all those steering committees, but also just continue to build partnerships with all of the great community-based organizations we work with. And then finally, of course, as I showed you our development on the community air monitoring plan, but of course, the Arvin Lamont CSC is working on the development of their CERP. Now, the SERP is something that was, last I spoke with you, would have been due 1 year after community selection. That would have been just in a couple of weeks here. But based on the need and to get a lot of sort of foundational education for the community and really the desire of the community to take more time, we as a community, there was a vote and it was passed unanimously, or by consensus rather, that the Arvin Lamont Community Steering Committee would request, or that we would sort of at the district request on their behalf, an extension from CARB. So that is actually going to go to our governing board in June, which is very similar to what we did in Stockton. We took a little bit more time. We made sure that the community had a lot of buy-in on the SERP. And it's something that we've definitely learned a lot about on the way. It's definitely worth the time to do it right. And CARB was supportive in that decision. So with that, I think that ends my slides, but I'll just double check. I'll have you go to the next slide. Perfect. So that is our community site. I mentioned a lot of what I just talked about is located there. All the air monitoring data, all of the emissions reduction plans, trackers. So you can actually see each and every measure, what we're up to and what's going on. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Mr. Leva?
Uh-oh, you're muted.
It's not a question, it's a compliment. I do have to applaud Air District and other people in the Stockton AB 617 area. It's one thing to have air monitoring, but you want to have air monitoring with a purpose, and they are moving towards having air monitoring in a way that we can do some health assessments. And I cannot tell you how gratified I am. I think it's called, I wrote it down here, OHIA, the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessments, has gotten involved. And I think that is so core to what we should be doing. It's not just having air monitors out there. We want to put air monitors in a place where we think there could be critical health effects, and then to see what the hopeful positive impact is of having vegetative barriers, air filtration, these measures that we undertake. So my great prayer is that that is earnestly embraced, not only in Stockton AB 617, but throughout everything where EJAG is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Great comment. Any other questions or comments for Jessica? Wonderful presentation, Jessica. I know you have been working very hard with all the 4 communities. I just participate in one community and I am so sometimes exhausted. I cannot imagine how do you do it. Tom?
Yeah, so it's my understanding that the Air District isn't nominating themselves as an entity, any new communities in the Valley, and that has something to do with the budget from the state, not providing additional funding. I'm curious, is it still like, I think that decision is already final, but if another community, I'll just say we're nominating South Modesto, which you can see on OEHA's CalEnviroscreen map. This is what it looks like, so it definitely is in need. But so if a community was chosen, even if it's not South Modesto, you know, how is that process going to work? Is that money need to come from the already existing? Is there a way to still, you know, maybe even this group or, you know, a coalition to advocate for that funding still for if more communities get chosen? I know that that's probably a big question, but you can summarize it and send me more details later if you want.
Yeah, I can just high level summarize. So yes, so actually last year when we nominated the Year 3 community of Stockton, we actually also nominated a small community in Madera called Lavinia. They were supported, and it's been sort of on CARB, the California Air Resources Board, who's ultimately, I think to your point, Tom, actually responsible for selecting communities. And this most recent round of sort of outreach and selection for CARB, Lavinia was already sort of on their list of what they call previously or strongly supported communities. So we did not officially resubmit a nomination for Lavinia, but of course we support any selection by CARB of that additional community. To your second point, actually for the past several years, there has not really been an increase in funding, although we have increased or added communities. And so certainly If and when that is the case, that say a community from us is nominated or selected by CARB, we would of course continue to do what we need to do in order to support it and to continue moving forward. Of course, I'm sure any advocacy to support and continue to fund AB 617 is certainly welcome, of course.
Well, you know, I and the others I work with will definitely be doing that. Thank you. Yeah, and we you know, we already got monitoring in not just South Modesto, but in Stanislaus County. So we're trying to do as much as we can. I was going to say one more thing, but now I forgot.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments for Jessica? Well, Jessica, I think that's it for your part. Thank you. We will let you go back to your baby that I know she's getting big. So
I hope you didn't hear her. So she's down there somewhere. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your presentation. We will move on to the discussion. Are there any recommendations or suggestions for potential items that we would like to see included in the agenda for our next meeting?
I know it's maybe it's still being worked on. I know we talked about kind of a general environmental justice 101 presentation at some point, but if that's already being worked on, that's fine. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I think just as an update on that, I some of that I think got caught up in the chair transition a little bit. I think the hope was, you know, once we have the new term chair, we'd work with the chair to kind of pull that together. And so I think we'll be working with Ms. Martinez on that for some future meeting.
Thank you. Any other items that you would like to see in the agenda? Okay, I don't see any. Do we have any public comments?
Through the chair, we do have a member of the public present, and it looks like we do not. So no public members in attendance.
Thank you, Michelle. Any comments from any of you? This is a quiet audience tonight. I guess you're all maybe hungry and want to leave to go and have dinner. I see nodding. I see yes. Okay.
I was just gonna say good job, Madam Chair or Chairwoman, or however I say it.
I don't know. You can call me whatever you want. That's fine by me. Well, hearing none comments, may I have a volunteer to present a report during the CAC meeting that will be happening on February 1st, so next Wednesday? Is that right? Wednesday or Tuesday?
Tuesday morning at 10 a.m.
Tuesday. Okay. Any volunteers? I know Derek has done it in the past, so would you like to keep on doing it?
Yeah, you know, they almost never ask for a report. I'll be there. If they do, I'm happy to give them an update, a 30-second update, but they probably won't. You know, we're pretty much an independent entity now. We haven't been doing anything that would be so radical that the CAC would be worried about it, I don't think.
No yet, Derek, no yet.
Uh-oh. You're scaring me, Madam Chairman.
There's a new sheriff in town.
If they want to report, I'll be happy to do it.
Watch out. Watch out. There's a new sheriff in town.
Yep.
No. Well, thank you. I think the last item is just to have a volunteer. I don't think this has happened a lot, that we are asked to present at the governing board meeting. Is that correct?
I don't think it's ever
generally
happened.
we will. The chair has in the past when we've adopted the annual goals, they'll do a presentation. So we potentially may this time based on the grant committee recommendation. So usually it's the chair who does that. So if you're so willing, Madam Chair, we can work with you to determine it may be this month or maybe next month.
I'm happy to do it, no problem. Okay, well, we went through the whole agenda with 5 minutes to spare, so I am surprised and happy. And we will adjourn the meeting being 6:55. Thank you all for being here, and we will see you in February. Did you say February, Morgan? Is that right?
Yeah, because we don't have normally we meet every other month, but because we don't do a December meeting because it conflicts with the holidays, we go back to back January, February.
So we will be here in a month. Have a good evening, everyone.
Congratulations, Madam Chairman, for finishing
Thank
on
you.
time.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
evening.
Bye.